Hello and welcome to Be Joyful 24/7. So what I thought today was I would show you what I have planned for this year. Now, normally what I would do, and you could find that in my old videos as well, that I would do a video for every month as to what seeds you can sow and what jobs you can do. But this year I am trying out something different. I'm just going to give this a go and see. I think this would be probably much better for what my needs are. If you are like me and you don't have a greenhouse or a polytunnel, maybe this might be a much better idea because you don't have a lot of space to put your transplanted seedlings or anything outside, then this might be the way to go. I did not sow any seeds at all. This is my first batch of seed sowing, and I haven't done anything so far in February as well. Normally in mid-February, by the way, today is, I think, when I'm filming today, it's about 26th or 25th of February. And normally I would have done a batch of seed sowing. But this year I have waited until the end of February because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a batch of seed sowing now at end of February, beginning of March. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do that over the next few days. And then I'm going to leave a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to do another batch of seed sowing at end of March and beginning of April, so that I could sow all my frost sensitive plants and everything and start a little bit earlier on, because last year I did leave it quite late, but then again I wasn't here at the key months of seed sowing. I was out of country. So I'm going to give this a go, but I feel like this might be a much better way of doing it. So I'll talk you through what I use and what seeds I'm going to plan for my first batch. I'm not going to show you every single seeds as to how to sow them. They're all pretty much the same. There are two different types of seed sowing. One is normal seeds in a tray and the other one is module sowing. And I'll talk you through which seeds are much suited for seed tray sowing and which ones are better suited for module sowing. I think that would be the best way to go. I will talk you through what I use, how I fill it, everything though. I would still do that. Without wasting any more time, I will just show you what I have planned. So as I said, I just want to make sure the seeds that I'm sowing are now not frost sensitive. So what I mean by that is a lot of the plants are frost sensitive and a lot of vegetables are, which means if you have a risk of frost on any day, and if you'd already transplanted in your pot or on the ground, and even if you have a frost on one day, it might damage and kill the seedling because they're very tender. You need to understand when you're first starting them out and you're putting them on the ground, they are very tender and they will not survive. The vegetables that we are going to sow today can deal with a certain amount of frost. So those are the ones that you could probably risk. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you do get a lot of heavy snow or things like that, or if you have continuous frost every day for a week or so, then the chances are it might still kill the seedling. But most of the seeds that we're going to sow at the end of February, beginning of March, can tolerate a certain amount of frost in the morning. But to give you a rough idea, you could always go on Google and just type in last frost date in your area, and it normally gives you a rough idea as to what the date will be. And that is a good guideline for you to understand when the risk of frost might pass, and you could just put plants on the ground without any protection or whatsoever. Worst case scenario, if you do have to transplant them outside and you're worried about risk of frost, you can always cover them with a cloche or some sort of like cover, a protection, fleece cover or some sort to give them that extra protection. But like I said, the seeds that we're going to sow now for this batch at end of February, beginning of March, they're not frost sensitive. They should technically be all right, because by the time you're ready to prick them out and pot them on and grow them a little bit, it is going to be a few weeks. So technically they should be really fine. So the seeds that I have planned to sow for this batch are all my brassicas, which are cauliflower, broccoli, which are actually Calabrese. And you don't grow sprouting broccoli now. Sprouting broccoli, which is actually broccoli, you sow them on later on in the summer, ready for harvesting for later on in the year. So we're going to just do broad beans if you're planning to sow broad beans. Onions, and onions can be grown two ways. So some of them you can grow them in seeds, like these ones. You can just buy them as pack of seeds, and as you can hear, they are tiny black seeds. But you can also start them in sets. If you are planning to use sets to grow your onions, these are literally baby onion bulbs. They say they're not going to be, I know it looks like shallots, but they're not shallots. They will grow into big onions. They just like a seed onion, and you plant them in the ground and they grow into big onion bulbs later on. So if you want to grow onions from sets, you can wait until end of March, beginning of April, because in a way they already have a bit of a head start, so it doesn't take longer for them to grow. But if you're planning to sow your onion from seeds like this that come in a packet, now is the time to sow them. And also, if you're planning to grow any spring onions, sorry, this one is leek. I think I picked the wrong one. But if you are planning to grow spring onions as well, then you can start them now. So all your brassicas, your peas definitely, and your onions, and the only exception I'm going to make is beetroot, and probably a couple of variety of radishes will also be okay around this time of the year, especially those, you know, the small tiny round ones of radishes. They're quite good to start now, and those are the ones I'm going to start, and the rest of them I'm going to wait until the end of month. So, and also, by the way, if you're planning on sowing peas, which are absolutely fantastic crop, by the way, I would advise everybody to try peas, because my first experience was last year of sowing peas, and they were absolutely unbelievably tasty. And I also had so much crop, I even managed to freeze them, and they filled the hungry gap perfectly, and I was able to eat still some homegrown vegetables. So yeah, if you're planning to grow peas, now is the time to sow them. Remember, after April you cannot sow peas because of mildew risks. So if you want to grow peas, now would be the perfect time to start them. Okay, and also there are two ways of sowing seeds. Some of them, like I said before, can be sown in little seed trays. Some of them can be sown in modules where you can grow them into clubs. So today I'll just tell you which seeds should be sown in modules and which seeds should be sown in trays, and I'll show you an example of both, and that's about it. I don't want to waste any more time. But I will link all the seeds that I'm going to sow in the description box below, so you can always use it as a guideline. Go and buy those seeds if you do want to use the same seed varieties that I'm using, because I tend to go for the ones that are definitely going to give me plenty of crop without any risk of any pests or any diseases. Normally I tend to go for the F1 hybrid variety, because those tend to be the ones that are much better in resisting diseases and pests. So the first thing you need for your seeds to be started is what they're going to grow on. You can get, so you need compost, and compost is something that I want to talk about, is because you can buy seed compost. Seed compost are nothing but they are very, very fine compost that has had some sort of like added things like sands and things like that. So it is very fine. So the idea is the seed has a much better chance of pushing it through. But to be perfectly honest, seeds are really tough. They will push through. If you think about seeds that are growing wildly, they still find their way out. So I don't think you need to fuss about it. And seed compost are a lot more expensive than your normal compost. So what I tend to do is just buy your standard multi-purpose compost. These sort of garden safe. You can pick them up online or any garden centers. So I use this garden sieve, I sieve them up, and I'm going to show you the clumps that's come out from the thing. So you can you see these sort of like big lumps and wood and fibrous material can be taken out, and you end up with something that looks like this, a lot more finer. I mean, don't get me wrong, you will still have little lumps and pieces, but they are very tiny, and to be perfectly honest, they're absolutely fine. So there you go. There's a little piece of wood. That will be fine. It's not going to harm any seeds. So this is what I do. I just buy multi-purpose compost, and nothing fancy. I don't go for any branded ones. I tend to sometimes even pick them up from Aldi or any supermarkets, because this time of the year almost all supermarkets sell them now cheaper. So go and buy those, sieve them up, and you are ready to go to start your seeds. So once I've done my sieving and I've got my compost ready, I pretty much just take these sort of like little punnet trays. I find these are much more handier than those big seed trays that you can buy from supermarkets, because for my needs, I don't need a lot of plants because I don't have a lot of space. So I probably will only ever grow about 20 to 30 plants maximum of one particular variety of any vegetable. So for me, I don't need a lot of seed to be sown. Trust me, in these tiny ones, you can sow up to like 25 to 30 seeds very easily, because anything that you are sowing in these sort of like little trays, you will have to prick them out. Prick them out is a process where after the seeds have germinated and you have two leaves where you can actually hold them and pull them apart, that's the stage you decide to just put them back in a little pot or somewhere else. You have to grow them a tiny bit more, and then you just transplant them in their final place. So do remember, some seeds you will have to sow them in seed trays. You don't have to. I suppose you could, if you wanted to say sow 10 cauliflower seeds, you could straight away go and pick 10 little pots or yogurt pots or whatever, and you could put one seed in each. You could totally do that. The reason we do this method is, once you've sown all your seeds, say I put about 50 seeds, when they start germinating, you will see there are some stronger ones than the weaker ones. It is very clear. And what you do is, pricking out really helps you make the decision of choosing all those stronger plants, potting them on, growing them a little bit, and then moving them on. So that is the main reason why you sow them in seed trays and then move them on. There is no reason why you can't just put one little pot and just put one seed and grow them. Absolutely perfectly fine. Like I say, we just try and do that. Grow plenty, choose all the strong ones, and say if 30 seeds have germinated and I only wanted 20, I choose the 20 stronger, much healthier seedlings, and I pot them on. Because sometimes you do have to understand that if you are sowing them indoors, seedlings tend to become a bit leggy. Leggy is when they're trying to reach for sunlight, and you will have a longer stem and they get a little bit weaker, and you can see the weaker stems. So that gives you an opportunity to choose a much nicer seedling over the leggy ones. So that's the only reason certain seeds are sown like this. So I've got my little seed trays. All I'm going to do is fill it up with a little bit of compost. Now, when you have your compost filled like this, make sure you just press it down a little bit, because then that will make sure that all your air pockets inside are filled up all nicely. Because this one is a little bit damp, but sometimes you can get compost which is very, very dry, and when you just water them, it does just tend to go down a little bit. So if you press down, you can already see that it's only half filled. Can you see that? And I know for sure once I water this now, it will go down even further, and that's not enough for my seed sowing. So what I'll now do is top it up a tiny bit more. So I've got more now again, and I'm going to press it down. I'm not pressing it really hard, just gently but firmly. And there you go. That's filled now, ready to sow. So as you can see, I have my tray filled up nicely, and I pressed it a little bit. I'm going to now water this. I'm using a fancy watering can, by the way. Always make sure you water it once. Wait for a few minutes for it to settle. Press it down again. And then water it again. And the reason for this is sometimes when you get really dry compost, you will find that it just pushes up, as you could have seen here as well. it just pushes back out again, and it's not gone all the way down. And it's very important it's really soaked well, because remember, once you watered it now, you're not going to water it again at all after the seeds are grown and it's starting to grow a little bit. So this is the only time we're going to actually water the compost. So you must make sure it's really soaked through the first time round. I'm just watering my compost now before I've actually put the seeds, and there is a reason for that. It's because if you just put your seeds on first and then you just watered the compost like it happened before, it will just push the compost a bit higher up, and the chances are all your seeds are going to go to one place, and there is a chance it might all just get clogged up in one place, and you don't want that. So always make sure your compost is really soaking through before you sow your seeds. So my seed tray is ready now, and I am just going to show you the seed I've chosen for this purpose. So I have cauliflower all year round. This was a variety that I trialed the last couple of years, and it has never failed, and it's a really good variety, and it's only 50p from Wilkinson, so you cannot go wrong. So do try this one. It's a really good variety and very high yielding and relatively pest free. Well, with brassicas you cannot be like that, because brassicas are the ones that most of the pests are attracted to. Hey ho. So anyway, I'm going to show you how I do it. So sorry, this is a new pack, so I'm going to have to open it. So the seeds look almost like mustard seeds. I don't count, I tip them out a tiny bit. I'm going to say that it's about 25 to 30 in here, roughly, by looking at it. And I'm just going to just literally sprinkle them around so they're not right next to each other really. But it doesn't matter, because remember, after they have their true leaves, we are going to prick them out and transplant them into a pot or some sort before we can put them on the ground. So I'm just going to dot them around. I hope you can see that. I think you can see it very clearly on the camera. And I'm just going to gently sprinkle them around. Like so. And that's it. Now, I'm just going to get a handful of compost. Just cover it up. It's just to cover the seeds. Nothing really. Just press it gently with my fingers. That's it. Don't press it too hard, by the way. And that's enough. Now, if I do want to just water on the top as well now, because if your compost is especially dry, do not now use a watering can. Instead, use a spray can and water the top of the compost. Do you remember the whole point we water the compost beforehand is so the seeds don't move around everywhere. So make sure if you do need to water again, use a spray bottle. By the way, do make sure that you are labeling your plants. So this was cauliflower all year round. And this one, it comes with a fancy label. So I'm just going to stick that there. So as I said earlier, some seeds you can module sow them. So what is module sowing? Module sowing is where you can grow 2 or 3 plants together as one little clump. So when you're putting them in the ground or in the pot, you can literally dig one hole for the whole 2 or 3 plants that you're growing together. That's what module sowing means. Now, the rest of the plants, remember, you are planting them individually. So every plant has its own space. With module sowing, you're putting them all together in one little hole. That's what module sowing is. And vegetables that are really, really great for module sowing are radishes, beetroots, turnips, onions, spring onions, peas. So those 6 ones, you can definitely module sow them. So why module sow? Module sowing is, one, it's really great, it's easy, and it also saves you space. So when you put 4 or 5 beetroots, oh, and beetroot as well. If you put 4 or 5 beetroots together, you might think that they might fight for space, but they don't. They happily just push out of each other, and you have a whole clump. But sometimes you can even see one of them is mature first than the other, and you just literally turn the roots, and you can just take one out of the whole clump. Same with onions as well. They happily push out, so you can do that as well. So for module sowing, I'm going to choose the one that I have chosen to show you is obviously my peas, but do remember you can sow the other seeds like onions, beetroots and everything for module as well. I will try and put in the link description box which seeds I'm going to module sow and which seeds I'm going to do in seed tray. When I'm talking about module sowing, and I did say that I'm going to do my peas first and show you, I just wanted to talk to you about peas because, like as I said earlier, peas are one of those crops that are really, really great, not just for fresh harvesting and cooking and eating, but they're also great where you can freeze and have them and fill the hungry gap. Hungry gap is when in winter time there is nothing much growing in the garden and you still do want to eat your own homegrown vegetables. So the pea variety that I'm going to choose today, or Kelvedon Wonder, Oskar, which is an early variety, and Onward, which is also an early variety, and another favorite of mine that I grew last year and I absolutely fell in love with is Alderman. Alderman is one of the really heritage varieties, and they grow over 6 feet tall, so you do need to understand it needs staking and a little bit of support. They're absolutely fantastic because the pods are massive. You get about 10 to 12 peas in one pod. They grow so big and they yield crops like there's no tomorrow. I cannot believe how many peas I had just from my Alderman variety last year. And they were absolutely tasty as well. They were yummy. Honestly, they were fantastic. Even as frozen, they didn't turn into mushy peas like you get from the frozen peas from the aisle from the supermarket, because you're literally shelling them straight away and you're putting them in the freezer, so they retain their shape, taste, flavor, everything. There isn't any difference that you would not believe that they are frozen peas. That's how good they were. So it has become my firm favorite, and it's a variety that I took from Charles Dowding. So I'm a big fan of him. So it's a variety that he recommended, and I tried it last year, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I'm going to say do go and buy it if you can. I have not seen them in supermarkets or anywhere, but you can buy them online. So go and see if you can do some research and get them. I think the one that I got are from Premier Seeds Direct. That's the website I got them from. But I do buy a lot of seeds from King Seeds, Sutton's, and a lot of companies, online companies. So you could definitely go and try that. By the way, if you're not quite sure about how to spell these seed names and you're a bit worried that I'm talking too fast and you don't understand what seed varieties I'm talking about, I always leave all the seed varieties in my description box so you can look at it your own convenient time and then you can go and find them. So do not panic if you feel like I'm just rambling on and you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. So there you go. That's the variety that I'm going to show you, but I am choosing 4 more varieties as well. Those are smaller varieties. They're like dwarf ones. So if you don't have a lot of space, and if you feel like Alderman variety, which is over 6 feet tall, is something that you can't do in your garden, do go ahead and choose any other variety of peas. They're still fine. So this is a module tray. This one is from when I bought some summer bedding plants, I think, from a garden center. I can't remember. It's been a couple of years, but they've still lasted for me. But you don't have to, if you don't have one of these, you can always pick one of these. These are cheaper ones. I would suggest if you're going to spend money on module trays, do go online and buy some much nicer, sturdier ones. These ones are rubbish. But they're still going strong, and I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to still reuse them as much as they will stay. I have to say that some of them are already broken. Anyway, they do the job and I'm going to keep them. So these are called module trays. Like we did for seed tray sowing, I have filled my module tray with compost. I have watered it really well. You can see it's nice and damp, ready to sow. With peas, I won't go more than 2 or 3, especially with the Alderman. I'm going to stick with 2 because they are a very, very tall variety. But the rest of the peas, I might just go for 3 in one cell. So this way, I have plenty of pea plants, and I will get my crops. Now, with peas, you can also sow them for pea shoots. I love pea shoots in salad. They taste amazing, in my opinion. And if you want to sow peas for pea shoots, you do need to understand that you have to sow them separately, and you have to have a separate batch of seed sown just for that purpose, only because when you are pinching out the new growth for pea shoots, they're not going to crop for you. And if you're sowing separately for pea shoots, you can always go and sow up to 4 or 5 in each module. But if you are sowing them for crop, then you must stick with not more than 3. So all I'm going to do is take a couple. I'm just going to put a couple of holes with my finger, drop the peas, cover them up. That's it. Nothing else. And that's it. And it will now just hopefully sprout soon. And I will wait up until they're about high. Oh, there's another advantage of module sowing is when you are module sowing, you don't have to prick them out or anything. So once you've sown here, we don't do anything with it until they are ready to be put in their final place, whether it's a pot or on the ground. So that is an advantage with module sowing. So with module sowing, you're almost bypassing that whole phase of pricking out and transplanting them, pricking them out and growing them on, because you can directly transplant them on the ground or in the pot. That's one advantage of that's another advantage of module sowing as well. So that's it for this video. I sincerely hope that it has been useful for you and you've learned something from this. My videos tend to be very much beginner friendly. These are beginner friendly tutorials aimed for people who want to start their own veg growing journey and don't know where to start. So I really hope this was useful for you, and I hope you start your veg growing journey this year and eat your own homegrown vegetables. Trust me, once you start growing your own vegetables, you will not like any of the supermarket vegetables. So until I see you next time, I do hope you take care and start your veg growing journey this year, and good luck with it. See you next time. Bye.